All right, we're back with another episode, but first the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com and go check out all the sponsors there. I want to take a minute and thank Gallo Technologies, Rhino Metals, Blackwater Ammunition, and Galco Leather Holsters, and of course, because that's important to me too, we got the one and only former Patriot, current, I believe, still ESPN analyst, right? You know, Rob Ninkovich on today. I want to get to first. You got some new going-ons. Your passions are cars. Everything's starting to bleed out into the internet. Everything that you love. What's new with you?
Well, we purchased Absolute Power Sports in Berlin, New Hampshire. See, is it cutting up? Hold on one second, John.
Yeah, it cut out a little bit.
Dude, why does it say poor connection?
But I got a good read on you.
For myself when I talk.
Okay.
It's freaking pissing off. I have all bars. Like it says I have full.
I have full too. I can hear you fine now.
All right, let me just jump right into it. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Yeah, so just we just purchased me and Joel Wheeler of Mom's in Foxborough. He owns 5 other dealerships. We just purchased 1,300 acres in Berlin, New Hampshire, next to the dealership. So that 1,300 acres abuts to the Jericho State Park. A 4-season recreation park. Go to our dealership, unload your stuff, get to the state park, ride on our land. Combined. So it should be a cool little adventure here, and then we'll eventually go into like cabins, rental
land in New England, right? You know, it's like amazing up there. I loved the time that I lived up there, and in New Hampshire and Maine, really phenomenal places to go visit if anyone hasn't. But I'm excited for you, man. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think now's a great time to be starting projects because I think when we come out of this, people are going to look for that. And I think people kind of rekindled their love for the outdoors. Kind of one of the good things that came out of COVID, right? You know, you got to find the silver lining is that love for the outdoors. I know you've been getting out more, and it's just a lot of fun to get out and be able to spend some time in nature and do some fun stuff. And I think that that's a huge positive. Wouldn't you say, Rob, that came out of COVID?
Yeah, I think we all realize the small things that you weren't able to take advantage of now that you were stuck in your house and you weren't able to go out and do the thing. I know for myself, I can't wait to take my wife out and go to like a nice country concert or you know, be amongst a bunch of people in a big stadium and just have a great time. But the new dealership type thing of side-by-side snowmobiles, four-wheelers, camping, getting out, I feel like people are definitely, after this thing is put to bed, they're going to want to get out and just go see the country and go see the world. So this new deal, it's called Mom's Jericho, by the way. That's going to be the name of the dealership. And it's in Berlin, New Hampshire. So we just started, December 1st was our first month under operation. So it's good. It should be cool. And then on the cars note, I love cars. I do love cars. I have a podcast. It's called the Dan and Ninko Show. Dan O'Brien is a big dealer up here. So it's more local New England sports. We talk a lot of football. We talk about cars. We kind of do some different things. I was going to, go slap a rhino on the ass at the South Lake Zoo, something like that. I mean, it's not like a crazy podcast. It's not like a crazy in-depth. But, we just talk sports and have a few craft beers on there. So we do some shout-outs to the local breweries around here. So, retirement's cool. I don't like to say I'm retired. I like to say that I graduated from the NFL. And I'm moving on to some other things because I'm 36, so I'm still pretty dang young,
Yeah, you got time, but it is fun to do some stuff. And it doesn't always have to be, people forget sometimes. It doesn't have to be this national crazy thing. Sometimes just having some fun and doing something that stays local or stays, in scope, you kind of scale it and start at a reasonable level. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? Like start with 2 days. Start with fucking walking around the park, right? It doesn't have to be crazy, And I think people that make the mistakes is that whether they go into retirement or graduation, they feel like they have to do something big. You're just kind of like enjoying the time right now. I see you. It's fun to just start out at a reasonable clip and not have to go a million miles an hour.
Well, I think the key, the number one thing for anybody who's looking to jump into anything, it could be a big deal, it could be a small deal, but I think you just have to really enjoy and have a passion for what you're doing. Myself, I love cars. I have a little collection of cars that I love to tinker with, and I love old stuff. So that's right up my alley. And then on the flip side of that, I love being outside. I love side-by-sides. I love four-wheelers. I love snowmobiles. So that's, I looked into other things, and I'm like, okay, what's another kind of, that's kind of why I dive into the things that I like to do. The whole podcast with Dan is cool because look, we just shoot the breeze. We have a few beers, like you were just a couple dudes sitting down at a table, and it makes it fun. If it was too big of a deal, it becomes a stressor in life. I'm at this point right now, I'm just trying to enjoy my kids and my family and raise them and have a great environment for them. Especially in the modern times right now, we're going through craziness. So I just want to take care of my kids. That's my number one.
Have you taken a look at those Patriot campers, by the way?
I have looked at some campers. I definitely have. I looked at.
I'm addicted.
What is it? It's Jericho camper. I like the pop outs.
Yep.
So like the fifth wheel with the pop outs.
That's what the Patriot.
They're
ones
actually
are.
not the Patriot. Is it the Jericho Patriot?
They're made.
Or is it the Jericho?
They do the H2. They're made in Australia. They're hard to get here. The only dealer right now is in Oklahoma, and I'm trying to get my hands on one. They run about $50,000. They are ridiculous. They're like nuclear submarines. They're insane. They're like the Earth Homer of fifth wheels.
When you look at like the price points of a fifth wheel, and I hadn't been in one in a long time, and I went to the local Pete's RV shop down the street, and they had a really nice one. I mean, it was $65,000, but for $65,000, I'm like, okay, if I went to go build a small cabin that I couldn't move around, and it had to have a generator and it had to have solar because it's off the grid, there's no way that I'd be able. It would be like $350,000, So the price points, they're actually really nice on the inside. I was trying to get my wife to be like, yeah, that's really nice, But I don't know about I don't care. I like the fifth wheel. I think they're the best. That's why. That's what I like about it.
Yeah, the fifth wheels are great if you're going like on a camping trip in Montana, or you're taking like a road trip and you just want or you're going ice fishing. That's where they can come up huge. You can set them up, kind of go out to they become huge. Check out those Patriot ones. But I've had my eye on
a link to one of those, and they're like, what are they? 300 G's? I think they're like.
It's not the money, Rob. It's the wait list. It's getting one.
It's crazy
because I think any one of us would throw the money down, right? 20% down, whatever, and get into the damn thing. But it's the wait list. I think they're a 2.5 year wait list. In 2.5 years, I could be in a wheelchair the way I go. It's like, who knows? So
you can't look that far ahead. You got to live for the now, right now.
Right.
You can't wait 2 years to get something.
But they're ridiculous. You can find some previously used ones, but those things are tanks. They're made to go and they're made to drive. The gas on them is one thing, but the wait list is a whole nother issue. And they're tanks. They're amazing. I could spend all day down a wormhole of fifth wheels. RVs, customizing them. I mean, that's a whole nother holy grail of.
You never get off of it, and the little people that are controlling all the ads are like, oh, he's hooked. We got him for the next 3 to 6 hours.
The kids are on fire. It doesn't matter. It's like you go down a wormhole.
Doesn't matter.
I love that stuff, but I want to jump into the NFL just to get your thoughts because there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I first want to say I think the NFL has done a great job getting back to football this year. I think that's been something, you and I have gone. It's fun to see them just get back to football, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you look at other sports that have dealt with more issues. I think football in general is a little bit different than, say, basketball, where there's a close knit group of guys that are pretty close and they're playing one-on-one with really kind of no separation. Football, I get it, you're like coming together and hitting each other, but the ability that the NFL has gone and the lengths that they've gone to test and make sure that guys are being safe and they're not, spreading this thing around. I personally didn't think that we get to this point as seamlessly as they have. I think they only postponed 4 games in the season. So you look at kind of the overall big picture, they've done a really good job, and they've been able to kind of keep the train moving. And they've been really, look, you think some guys come up positive and they're not going to, and they just say, yep, game's on its schedule.
Right. I think we lost.
It's the risk and the reward have been there. So they've kind of risked it, they pushed it, and the reward is we're here almost, week into the wild card's already been done. We're going into the playoffs, second week of the playoffs. Got some great football. I think all those wild card games were terrific. Except, even the Steelers game, they spotted them 28 points, the Browns 28 points, and they still made it somewhat of a game. So I think that the competition and guys are playing tough. You've seen a difference this year with no fans in the stands.
Right.
I can tell you that. You don't get to have that sense of just that whole energy and the home field advantage and the stadium in a roar. If you're a visiting team, that definitely is helping you, where you don't have to go on silent count and you don't have to scream at everybody an inch away, from their face to have them hear you. So there's some definite disadvantages to not having the fans in the stands, but
well, I think the cat's out of the bag, Rob, with them pumping in the sound, because they're pumping in sound.
Yeah, but honestly, the sound it's not as loud as what a fan base would be. The sound, honestly, when the sound's on, because they've done it in practice and stuff, we could have a conversation from 15 yards away, and the sound, because the speaker system in a stadium isn't as loud as it would be if there were 70,000 people there.
Right.
So they try to make it somewhat of an, somewhat realistic, but it's not even close to what the fans and the real energy of that stadium is. So the teams that can bring their own energy, when the stadium's empty and you walk onto the field and you're doing your warm-up and you're looking around, it's the guys that can get each other going and get pumped up to go play. And those teams, I feel like, are going to have the best chance of going the distance and winning out. Kind of like the Steelers, they started that game. There was no energy there. You snap the ball over the center snaps the ball over Roethlisberger's head. They go down 28 points. It's like, they never started,
Right.
they were never really primed up to go. So then they dug themselves in a hole. They couldn't get out of it. So it's going to be all about who can get that energy going.
Right. What always cracks me up, though, what I feel is more of a distraction, you tell me, is the fans that do their research. They're the wiki kids' names, or they know, they're doing research.
That's just creepy. That's creepy. Yeah. I don't like that.
I hate that. I see it sometimes. They're like, hey, so-and-so, your sister, this. And I'm like, what the fuck? They're doing research.
Well, the issue nowadays is you can go online and you can find some things. 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't just go on someone's Instagram and see, stuff that they post, and then, through the comment section, figure out names, which is it's weird. It's kind of cuckoo, but you got your super fans out there, guaranteed.
100%. That one always amazes me, but I'm like, Jesus, give the guy a break. The big thing, the big thing now is playoffs, right? So we'll get to the Patriots and where they go from here, but you got, Green Bay is going to be an interesting one. You got New Orleans and Tampa, obviously, is going to be a fucking tremendous matchup. Kansas City, Buffalo, Cleveland still in it. Baltimore, you got the MVP still in this. It's been a fun and exciting year. It only gets better with the Breeze-Brady matchup. How do you not talk about that, right? You have to be excited for Tom, and of course, both of them are kind of in the swan song stage. I don't think that's a secret, right? How does this play out? And you have to be excited for Tom, right? Now that the Patriots are out of it, where does this play out?
I mean, it's really, really hard to beat a team, the same team 3 times. So for the Saints, I mean, they got to make sure that they bring it just like they did week 1, and the second time they met up with them and beat them the second time, because playing a team 3 times, when you play that team, you really start to understand and know the team and know their concepts and know what they want to do. So if you're Tampa, the number one thing you got to do is protect Tom. So you have to make sure you stay in with tight ends like Gronk. You got to use the backs, and you got to chip out, and you got to make sure that you give Tom enough time, because in those first 2 meetings, Tom was being hit and he was getting abused, and nobody wants to get hit. So same with Drew Brees. If you can get after Drew Brees, he's not the same guy either. So right. I think in this particular game, for Tampa, you have to look at those first 2 games and say, look, we didn't take care of Tompkins at the receiving core. So I think Tampa can do it. I really do. I think if they can they can make sure they can get those guys going offensively and they can score. So it's up to Tampa's defense. I think Tampa, when I watch their defense, I'm like, come on, step up a little bit. You look at them versus Washington, they had a guy out there just throwing the ball all over them, and you're like, who is this guy? Heineken or Heineke, whatever. So I just think that Tampa has the ability to get Tampa has the talent and the skill across the board to get the job done and beat the Saints.
Right.
But it's going to come down to their offensive line.
Does Tom have – he has nothing to lose at this point. The book's been written on him. I think for Brady, for Breeze, this is bigger. And I think that this is that the swan song is bigger for him this go round. So that, he's going to process the pressure just fine. But I think it's fair to say that Breeze has more to gain. Brady has nothing to lose. And that kind of works in Tom's favor.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Drew's career, and he's only been to one Super Bowl, one Super Bowl. And the last 3 to 4 years, the Saints have had absolutely horrible postseason luck. You look at the no call against the Rams, which should have been a call, and they score, they win. Then they play the Super Bowl. I think if the Saints played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, it would have been a lot tougher for the Patriots to win. I guarantee you that. So, you look at the Minnesota Miracle, where they threw up a Hail Mary and the safety missed the guy and he ran for a touchdown, they lose. So they've had some tragic losses that really, I mean, they're a punch. He knows it's shit or get off the pot.
Yeah, it's now or never,
done, man. Like you got to get that Super Bowl, and you got to walk away right off into the sunset, because I feel if they do win the Super Bowl, he's retired. He's done. I personally think he was retiring last year, but then he kind of was like, I might as well give it one more go. We got a strong team here.
I definitely think, skills aside, I definitely think he's kind of at the end of the line, in terms of what else he can accomplish. I mean, with Brady, to me, the season's already a win. He's won a playoff game. He's established himself as a legitimate NFC threat. I mean, I think he's obviously going to play another year, but I think he's already written the book and sold it twice. So it's a matter now of Breeze seeing if he can get the job done, and if he doesn't, it only further solidifies Tom, as the Jesus Christ of football. So, for him, it's nothing but gravy at this point. If he gets to an NFC championship, I mean, he gets to rub it in Montana's eyes a little bit more, right? As having done it now in two divisions. So, two conferences. So my hat's off to him. And you got an interesting dynamic in the AFC, with this upstart Cleveland crew. If they can get past Baltimore, you're going to have a showdown between, two essentially upstarts, one that's won a Super Bowl, but Kansas City and Cleveland. And then you could get the matchup all over again in the Super Bowl, which would be Kansas City and the Patriots, and not Patriots, and Tom at Tampa. So, you'd have that interesting dynamic. It'd be a lot of fun to watch. I imagine those are the two you have coming out. I mean, your heart has to be with Tom, and I would think, go ahead.
I think it's hard to go against Rodgers at this point right now with how he's playing.
Right.
I really think with them being the number 1 seed, and you're Tampa or you're New Orleans, you have to go up to Lambeau. And I get there's no fans, but if it's -5 or 10 degrees, if it's 15 degrees, it's going to feel like the Antarctica up there. And if you have a little bit of wind, think about it. If you have a 15-mile-an-hour wind and you're Drew Brees. You can't cut the ball through that. His arm is a little bit weaker now. You can tell that he can't push the ball down the field. They're putting in, the backup quarterback to throw the ball deep. So, I think that Green Bay quarter of the season, they really picked it up a little bit there. So I think Green Bay, my matchup for the Super Bowl is Kansas City versus Green Bay. I think it's going to be the Pat Mahomes and Rodgers match.
You heard it here, people. So it's interesting. It cuts deep. The love listen, I see it still as, I picked New Orleans at the beginning of the year, even with knowing Tom was going to be in Tampa. I picked New Orleans. I like New Orleans in many ways. You're right with the first seed. Green Bay is a big factor. I think the Rams are going to get slaughtered. I don't even think that's going to be close. I think arrested Green Bay going up against the Rams, who are used to the sun, and I believe they haven't won a game in below 35 degrees of weather. I think they're toast. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the AFC plays out. I think Baltimore could give Kansas City fits in so many ways, and that could be a fun matchup to watch if it comes down to that, if they're able to get there. I'd like to see that. That would be a matchup that would be a lot of fun. I still think it's Kansas City, and I lean more towards it being a New Orleans-Kansas City Super Bowl, which I think Breeze is going to get the mustard up to kind of make it happen. I agree with you, but I think New Orleans has enough weapons and has enough on defense to get there. That's my pick. It's hard to pick against Tom, but I just think it's New Orleans time, and I think Breeze knows the urgency, and Tom's won enough. If that's saying anything safe, which it's not, but we'll see. Now the Patriots are another story. I think they had an interesting year. They were so many ways. They finished with the 15th pick, Rob. You have to be looking at the board and looking at the tea leaves and saying, where does this go from here and how does this play out for Bill? And I know the love of a player to a coach, and I'm kind of doing a little bit of the analysis myself, and I'm saying, do they go out and get this out of Alabama? I mean, how does this play out?
By the way, did you see the post-championship photo of Mac without shirt on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's
he
amazing.
does not look like an athlete. He looks
it flickers of Tom Brady, really.
I mean, like the guy just looks like just like a melted candle. But anyway,
he threw for almost a nickel, and
it's crazy. But anyway, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's all about how you play. But I personally think Bill he's not a young guy. He doesn't have years to develop a young quarterback. So on the one side, I could see them going and getting a quarterback early, but on the flip side of that, I could see them trying to pursue a quarterback, an older veteran quarterback who can help them now, and then have in the draft class a young quarterback that they feel could be maybe underneath the guy that they just picked up as a veteran, maybe Matt Stafford. I love Matt Stafford. I think he would be a tremendous pick for the Patriots to bring in because, number one, he can sling it, and he's your pro-style quarterback, pocket quarterback, which the Patriots, that's what we've seen the last 20 years, was a guy in the pocket, drop, look, evaluate the field, throw the ball. This year with Cam, it was like, it was terrible. I couldn't watch. I mean, when I was watching it, I'm like, this is the worst football I've seen because you understand what it is. It's so one-dimensional. It's okay, run the football. If you can't run the football, that's it. We're screwed. So I would think that they'd go and get a veteran and then go into the draft and build a young crew of guys because they have a lot of dudes that are up too in free agency that they're going to have to make some really tough decisions, and they have a lot of holes to fill. So they're going to have to make some great decisions to make sure that they fill those holes.
That's why I think, Rob, just to get your thoughts, I took some notes. I did some research. I'm not quite to the level you are, but I think they're in a 2 to 3 year window. I think the way Bill looks at it is maybe I have, 5 years before I ride off into the sunset, right? Because age and everything else, baked into this. I think he looks at it as potentially go out and use the next 2 drafts. Like maybe you're 9-7 next year, maybe you're 8-8. I don't know. Whatever that scenario looks like. Stafford's a great angle, and that might play into that. But I think that if you see that quarterback slip, it's hard not to go out and grab him, right? And then maybe you grab a Stafford as well. I don't know. But do you start with wide receivers, which they've never done, and they have, I think CBS and a few other mock drafts have them taking a wide receiver. I don't see that in Bill's makeup. I see them building, like you said, but it's going to be a 2-year build. I stick to my guns in that. I think it's a 2-year build, and I think that they get outside of that window. That's when they have a chance to win is 3, 4, and 5. And I think if I'm Bill and I'm planning, right, that's what I'm looking at is 3, 4, and 5 of that 5-year window of being like, okay, we're ready. We have the pieces. But like you said, he has to have a stellar draft in there somewhere and a mediocre draft at least to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, he's got to have a great draft. I mean, he's got to have a great free agency period, also bringing in different guys. And I think the toughest issue for Bill and the Patriots now is going to get guys out of free agency that in the past you could dangle the carrot of Tom Brady to them. If you were an older receiver, if you were a tight end, if you were any offensive player, even if you were a defensive player, you would say, hey, look, we got this guy here, the best quarterback in the NFL. We have a chance every single year. I think that also it makes it a challenge for them to bring in talent when they don't have guys like Tom Brady there to say, hey, to go. And now they have to build it from the bottom up, which more difficult than what they're used to doing in the last 20 years. I'm doing it for 20 years.
And that's why I think if you're playing the optics and the politics of it and you go get a Mac Jones and a Matthew Stafford, it instantly says we're here, based on the politics and the optics of a move like that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
And then it depends on McDaniels, like Josh McDaniels, if he moves on and they have to figure out and find a new offensive coordinator. There's going to be a lot of question marks. There is a lot of question marks. You look at the defense, they need a pass rusher.
They need a linebacker.
They need cover linebackers, guys that can they need cover linebackers that can cover a back out of the backfield. They have too many guys on the defense that are rotational guys that come in on, there's too many subs coming in. You need a group of guys that you can keep out there for all 3 downs. And then those guys build a relationship. And then you have your, other groups of guys, small groups, an extra DB or an extra inside rusher that come on the field. But, when you're bringing out different groups for run downs and pass downs and early run downs and early pass, it's just, there's too much going on there. So they need a little bit more stability on the defensive side of things too.
So if you're Bill for a day on draft day, do you trade the pick or keep it? And what do you do with it?
I think it depends on what's available at 15. So from all that I have seen over the years with the Patriots and how they work in the draft is they look at what's available. So they take best available pick. And I think if the best available is something that they already feel they're good at, so say, for example, in 2012, when you had Tom as your starting quarterback, and they had the pick, hypothetically, say it was 15, and 15 will go down and get 2 first-round picks, maybe 2 offensive linemen or something like that. That's generally what they've tried to do over the years is trade down for more equity in the draft. But I think at this point, at a top 15 athlete to help them build. Go get a pass rusher, go get a big time receiver, somebody that you can consistently count on that are going to make plays for you right away.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they either got to use it or even potentially trade up and mortgage maybe a future first rounder because I feel this draft is loaded. And I feel like a lot of guys, especially with the COVID anxiety, are going to come out, and guys have already been announcing that they're going to come out. I think there's a lot there. I think, the opportunity is now to kind of make a big splash. I agree with you. The equity is there this year, and I think the politics and optics lend to making a decisive move, and I think Bill recognizes his own mortality more than anybody, and I think he's in a 5-year window. You'd be crazy not to say that, right? I think you have to. So to every New England fan out there, I think he has to be looking at it that way.
If he's making what they said he's making $25 million a year, I'd coach 10 more years. Why not?
Right. But I mean, imagine at some point he wants to be on the boat in Nantucket spending that money. I don't know. I don't know how much of the juice he still needs, I don't know. But
he's not spending it. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
He's not spending it.
It just comes down to how much juice he's got in the tanks. But he is a planner and he is methodical. And I think the way I'd imagine, if I was in his head for a second, I think the way he looks at it is like, he probably went to Mr. Kraft and probably said, hey, we need 2 or 3 years to get this back on track. And imagine that's how he looks at it in those conversations, missing some key pieces. You'd be crazy, right? I mean, it's not reality, right, in the NFL, because the difference is milliseconds, points, it's so small. So he has to imagine that. So those conversations have to go something like, hey, we need this year. We're going to probably need next year, and then we'll get it right back where we need to be. And by then, fall apart through free agency. Kansas City's going to have a lot of decisions to make in the coming years. History has shown us one thing, Rob. When you reach a pinnacle level as a team, you kind of have now that 3 or 4 year window before it starts to crumble, right? We saw that with the Jets making it, 3 AFC championships. We've seen that with the Patriots, 3 out of 4. It tends to be that 3 out of 4, right? You might have the tail end of a Buffalo squad, but they'll have decisions to make. And as they make decisions, they kind of start to, be on that downturn, and it puts you right back in there depending how it plays out, right? Because the money becomes a factor, which the Patriots have a lot of it right now. And they have a lot of room to make moves. So we'll see. As long as they don't get Stafford for $25 million a year, I mean, that's another issue. But it'll be fun. And,
right.
And I'm glad we're back to somewhat football as normal. I'm excited about that, and I think that's a cool thing to see. And it's not all the baloney that comes around it, because if you take a page from the UFC and you look at what Dana's been able to do, it's just get back to work and just get your people working.
Yeah, no, Dana's done a terrific job. You look at what, the Fight Island and his, idea there to let's go to a specific location and take care of everybody, make sure we're all, safe and, no positive tests and all those things that they put in place in the UFC. Like, he's been very successful. And I mean, there's a reason the guy's got as much money that he does have. He's smart and he understands how to, take advantage of the bumps in the road and not go backwards. He just keeps fighting forward.
What I love, and I heard this internally from my sources, was the minute COVID hit and all these lockdowns came, he had a very rousing speech to his whole staff that was, I'm here to keep you guys working, and I'm going to keep you guys working. I don't want to have to lay a million people off. I want to keep the ball moving forward and keep people working. And that's the key at the end of the day. I think that's the responsibility of a leader at the top, is keep everybody working, keep everybody paid, because people want to work. They don't necessarily want to be home, Rob, doing nothing, even if they are paid. That's cool for the first 2 weeks, right? And then we all start going crazy. So people want to work. So keep people working. Keep them shoveling the parking spaces. Keep them working the security deck. If you can only let 5,000 people in, then hey, but at least people are still working, and money's still coming in. People want to inherently work. I believe that. And I know you do too. I think that's for something. I think it's just keep people working and under whatever constraints, because we're probably not going to see this all until next football season. That's my prediction. I think we're in for a little bit of this in the summer, and then I think as the cure, the vaccination gets out there and people start to go through the process, I think you'll start to see things kind of dissipate a little bit. That's the hope, right? And people will be able to get back to business as usual. It has to run its course. So I'm excited about it. I think this offseason is going to be a lot of fun to watch the Patriots in particular, and we're in for a good postseason. Now, you watched the national championship. That was wild, right? Absolutely wild.
Yeah. I mean, Alabama, they pretty much are. I mean, they're a factory for just producing championships. I think it was at their 18th national championship. Just ridiculous. So, I mean, it's the system that they have in place. And once you get to a point like Alabama, every single 5-star recruit, whatever you are, from every state, they want to go there. So, I mean, they have created this machine to where they continue to win. And the backups of these superstars are just as good as the superstars. So, you have guys go out or guys go to the NFL, then the young kid that was a freshman is a sophomore. He's just as good as the guy that went to the NFL. And it's just continuing over and over and over again. So, Saban obviously knows how to run that program terrifically. He's getting the best of the athletes in the country to Alabama. I mean, look, I don't see it stopping. Every single year, they got a quarterback that's going to be top 5 pick. They got a receiver that's going to be a top 5 pick. They got a defensive player that's going to be a top 5 pick. So I see the train slowing down. It's going to keep on rolling here. And if any other teams want to try and get in the way of that, you're going to have to come up with some trick plays or something to trick them. But you're not just going to run over Alabama.
As a recruiter, and you're working for Alabama, you're told just don't fuck this up. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, you just
Nick get his 7th and see him find his place in history, and that linkage obviously to Belichick, and it's just I think that team goes down as one of greatest national champions that won't be talked about. Because it's just COVID 100%. And whatever. Yep. I mean, they had the Doak walk in the annals of history, or time will be kind to them. But I thought they were absolutely loaded in the way that they won that game. It just spoke volumes, about where they are versus everybody else. So it's a shame, but at the same time, obviously, his 7th championship, he goes down.
I think that team could beat some of the sorry NFL teams. I'm telling you, they could easily do it. 100%.
They were loaded. They were absolutely loaded. And, I think they had, what was it, the best center award winner, one of the best offensive lines. They were just so loaded. And it's fun to see a team like that unload. It's kind of a cut above, like you said, above everybody else in college football. But I think college football is doing a great thing with the playoff, and I like the system, and I like that they moved in that direction. So it makes it fun. It makes it exciting. It's made me a fan again, because you can't trust that old system of polls and everything else was for the birds. I like that they're doing it this way now, and it kind of weeds out the fakers and shuts everybody up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that they're, maybe I didn't agree.
Right.
So that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, no, it's kind of coming to its own the last couple of years, that playoff system, and I think it's kind of really established itself. In the beginning, everybody was nervous. Everybody was running for the hills, but I think now, should they get rid of bowls, Rob? I was going to ask you that question.
They're stupid. Get rid of the bowls. I mean, who cares about the Cheez-It Bowl? Just get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
So
what do you do?
I think you have your specific bowls that I feel like are just, the Cotton Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, like certain bowls, I feel like they're classic historically. But then when you come up with like these silly, I don't know, like there's bowls that come up now. I'm like, what's the Pampers Swaddler Bowl? Like, come on, like get out of here, right? So they're coming up with these bowl games, and I get it. It's all about money, and there's donations, and the universities are making tons of money off of the donations. So that's why they're having these bowls, because they're generating revenue from the sponsors, and sponsorships pushing money into the university. But they should just cut them back a little bit, make them more special, make them more, okay, if you actually have a winning season, you go to a bowl game, not like, hey, we're a 5-win team, let's go to a bowl game. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like in Massachusetts for years, we were hampered by the Thanksgiving Day game, right? Like that was always like the thing. How do we do a playoff, But like, I'm like, how are we the only state that doesn't crown a true state champion in the end? You know what I mean? It's like we have these stupid Thanksgiving Day games, and then, you have 97 divisions, and it just always sucked. And even when I coached, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But they figured out a way to do it, and I still think they should taper it back to where you get one, Division I, Division II, Division III. They should still kind of tighten it up even further, but that's a whole nother story for another time. But the bowls, you're absolutely right. The fact that I think it was teams that were like, 7-5 or going into bowl games, it was always like, what the fuck are we watching, And, it's great to have football on, and we're not against that, but I think you could shift it to where the conference champion becomes the bowl game, right? Like that's been talked about. That's a solution that could be put in place pretty easily. And I think you can call it whatever you want, right? It's the Pac whatever it is now, championship, Doritos bowl game, whatever you want to call it. So I think there is solutions out there, and I think that the bowl games, because who watches them, right? Like some of them are at like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm like, who?
I don't think anyone watches them at that. Like, there's some that like nobody watches, right? Like, I've turned on my television and ESPN whatever has a game. And I'm like, who the heck is playing? And then I just turn it, and then I flip the channel. It's like, oh, they're playing football. Okay. And you turn on something else.
I want to ask one more thing before I cut you loose. That I want to touch on the effects of streaming and how cable's changing and how sports is shifting. Do you ever see a time where, you know, streaming comes into play and you're able to like see a situation where it's not going to be on TV? I mean, for years, you know, in terms of how that all takes place, because who gets cable anymore, right? Like, who has cable? And you have to get it through another feeding system. So do you feel that sports is ready for that and it's easy to digest on streaming, and it's probably the most suited for it? It's an easy conversation, but what do you think?
Our network that is relying on cable, then eventually you're going to be the dinosaur and you're going to be extinct, right? So everything is moving towards the stream. I mean, you look at the Prime, Amazon Prime, and you can watch your Thursday night games on there. You know, there was even some games, the playoff games were on other networks for streaming purposes. So that's going to be the new thing. But eventually it's all going to work. You're just going to go from cable to streaming. It's going to cost about the same eventually. So,
right, because you're buying it a la carte.
Yeah, it's a la carte. So it's like, oh, I want HBO, I want this, I want my news station. But then you look at your monthly statement, it's like, oh, I'm paying exactly what I was paying for cable. Plus I rented or I bought 2 movies. So I'm actually paying more, you know. So the people that come up with these things aren't, you know, dull tools in the shed. I mean, they're sharp for a reason.
Yeah.
How to make money. They understand how to use technology. They understand, okay, people want quick service now. They want to go do stuff instantly. So that's why they've come up with the streaming services, and it's going to take off, and it's going to continue to progress. You see all these gaming things now, or there's kids that want to play video games rather than play actual sports. So technology is a scary thing, man. I mean, our world right now is shaped off of technology, and it depends on who has those platforms that can shape our world. So it's pretty damn scary to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point it's a foregone conclusion that at least on social media platforms they'll be subject to publishing law, which I think that's going to come down at some point. I mean, that's just a matter of time without getting into the politics of it. But I think, you know, that they've injected too much of their own publishing into it, and that's going to cause some type of regulation to come in. So as far as social goes, I think that's coming. I love what ESPN Plus has done, and in the beginning I wasn't a believer that they'd be able to pull it off, but I mean, it's amazing. And what's great about it is, you know, the thirst for content. So they're going to look to people who can create content and put it out there. So content has become really the new commodity, the Bitcoin of all this. And if you can, what I really hope for is, you know, that time when you can do almost like a watch party where you're watching a game or you're watching a Patriots game, and it can be you and 3 other guys kind of commenting on it and doing almost like a podcast like atmosphere. But I think content's going to continue to be the Bitcoin, because you have to, it's like triage. It's like what Dana's going through with the UFC. You have to create the content. You have to feed the machine, because people binge watch and consume right now like fucking animals. And there's just not enough to put out there. And that's going to be one of the things that fuels kind of this move forward into streaming. And as we stream more, it's kind of crazy because we both are in that same age bracket where we can remember a time where people didn't have cell phones constantly at their hip and at their ready. But now there's so much to consume.
I miss those days. I miss that. A picture snapped, or some guy was caught, you know, in a certain position. Think about in history, you know, the whole things would have been completely different.
I remember a lot of bar fights and a lot of times at UMass that shit got fucking crazy, that I'm like, thank God there wasn't a camera around, you know?
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah. I mean, people's lives would have had a different trajectory. You know, they were going this way and then something changed because of this stupid thing here that people seem that they can't get off they can't get off of it. They can't stop looking at it. So my phone, so at some point, I'll be in my phone at times, but then other times, you know, people are like, oh, I haven't talked to you all day. Or like my dad, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I haven't looked at my phone all day.
I need a minute.
50 text messages and I have 15 missed calls, and like, I don't care. I don't want to look at it today.
I keep a running counter. I have like 700.
People need to do that from time to time. They need to take their shit, put it down, forget about it. Go outside. Go do something else. Go work out. Just put it down. I can't stand people in the gym, like dudes in the gym, like in between sets, they'll look at their phone. I mean, you're not changing music, dude. Like, just put the shit away.
I love the couples that are filming each other working out, like they're creating content. That's my favorite thing in the gym. And you see it a lot in Vegas, you know what I mean? It's a thing here. Like, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, why don't you two just like train and, you know, whatever, and like I'm in a place to create content, right? Like,
honey, stick your butt out a little bit more.
Yeah.
There you go. That looks good.
They call them like the social media husbands, right? The husbands of social media, right? And they have like 97 sticks and poles and things to get the I'm like, Jesus, like, wow. Thank God I'm
another thing too that I think it's hilarious. It's the filters that people put on these things. Like, that's not your face. Like, it's a filter. It's not real. It's like, that isn't you. So just don't do the filter. Like, what are you doing?
You need a name for it, because it's not quite catfishing, but it's there. It's right there. Because there's some that are passable.
It's like, I mean, you meet them in person, you're like, who are you? Oh, that's a different, whoa.
You got to be shitting. Yeah, it's pretty funny, and it's a lot of fun to see in action and people watch it. But I miss the days of going out and not feeling like I have to take a picture of my food, not feeling like I have to look at my phone. And that's part of the reason why I love the podcast. It's a chance to put down the phone and have a conversation with someone. Like, you and I can catch up and go another 6 months without chatting, because you just kind of catch up on everything going on in people's lives and what's new and, you know, what's exciting, you know. It's just a lot of fun. I mean, I got addicted to buying sneakers when I was going through COVID. I bought probably 15 pairs of fucking sneakers while I was sitting at home, because I ruptured my Achilles, and I was like, I'm just going to buy like 10 pairs of Air Maxes, 4 pairs of Jordans, and, you know, and just enjoy that. And I found myself buying more Lululemon clothes because I just wanted to be relaxed at all times, you know. So, you know, you kind of just get caught up in the simple things. And, you know, my buddy just went on one of those retreats, Rob, and I haven't, you know, you run around with a unique crowd. I don't know if this filtered down to you yet, but he went on that one of those retreats where they put social media away and they do like yoga and they do this stuff and they do that. You know, I see that becoming more and more of a thing as time goes on, but I imagine some of the people in your circles are messing around with some of that stuff where they take one of those pauses. I call it like just going out in nature, like go on a hike or something, like you would, but I imagine that some people are looking into those because he got to find himself and put social media away.
Well, I tend to look at, and that's the one thing that I feel for the young kids that are teenagers or guys like young adults coming up in this world. I'd probably say 90% of the things on the Instagram it's just fake stuff. So it's, you know, a car that the guy doesn't own, or like a filter on someone's face, or just things that it's not real life. You know, it's just not real life. It's just people trying to act like that's the best part of their life, to project themselves like they're up here.
Right.
But we're all the same. We're all the same people. Like, we're all here. We're all right here. So it's all about communication, conversations, one-on-one, talking to people like on the phone. I can't stand nowadays. Everyone's like, "Oh, I'll email you." I'm like, I don't like
use
email.
it. Yeah, I tell people I don't use it.
I don't like email. Like, don't email me, because I'd rather talk to you on the phone. Just call me. Here's my number. Call me if you want to talk to me. If you have to, don't email me, because I have like 150,000 emails that I haven't checked. So yeah, don't email me.
I have a staffer that filters through the emails for the show and everything, because I get a lot of the if you need a guest. I get a lot of those. If you need a guest, and they send me this thing, and it'll be like this long, you know, list, and I'm like, I've done 350 of these. You think I'm starving for someone to come on? You know, I'm not exactly, you know, there's plenty of those, and some of them are good, and some, you know, I just have to have someone filter it because it's too much, and they come in through the website and it becomes a thing, just as I'm sure you get people that want to sit around the campfire and just be around, you know, the bullshit. You have to have filters in place at some point in the festivities with certain things to kind of mitigate what comes through. And I've heard the theory of, like, sometimes you have to change your phone number every so often. There's, you know, a million of those. I think it's just a matter of go out and do something. Like you said, go up to New Hampshire, go up to Maine, go take a trip, Go up to Montana. Go get out of the element of the technology being the draw. You know what I mean? Because if you're sitting around the couch and the technology is the draw, go out and buy an RV or anything, a fifth wheel, and get out of Dodge. Go out on a jet ski. It's hard to text on a fucking jet ski. I don't know much, but it's hard to do that. It's hard to text
It's hard to text on a snowmobile, man.
Yeah.
if you can do that, you're hitting a tree. So,
and I think that's great advice.
Just live it like. And just, I would say too, like, we just need to enjoy we don't have much time here. People think about like our lifetime. It's not that long. So if you spend 8 hours a day on your phone, you're wasting your life on that stupid shit. So, for me, it's enjoy the time, enjoy your kids, enjoy sitting down at dinner and looking at people and having dinner, not looking at your phone, put your phone somewhere else and just enjoy your life because, we don't have time here to just like, oh, let's just, I'm 35 years old, 36 years old. I'm going to spend 8 hours a day on a phone. Then I'm going to Netflix, watch a bunch of shows. Like, what is that? Like, just go enjoy your life, enjoy people. COVID sucks. I get it. But after this shit's over, I'm putting my phone away. I don't even care. I'm going to get a flip phone. I'm going to get that old Razor. Remember the Razor, the black Razor flip phone? It was like classic. I'm going to get that. No more Instagram, none of that shit.
I posted the Nokia the other day and I was like, extinct. Have you seen this? Like I put in my story. I was like, this thing's extinct.
I'm going to get a regular old school phone. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's my next thing.
I don't even think you can get one, can you? That's a good question.
I think you can order. You can get them. I think you can get that
a Cricket
Razor. I think you can. I think you can. Yes, I do.
I don't even know. Now with the AI and everything in them, I find myself deleting apps. I think deleting apps is a lot of fun. I think if you're sitting around on your phone and you're deleting apps, you're productive on the phone. Delete some of the frickin' apps. Delete some of the notifications. Get them off your phone. If you can get your phone down to one page of apps, I challenge anyone listening. If you can get your phone down to one page of apps, you're doing good. Get that shit off your phone because it's just going to send you notifications, spam mail, everything else. And try to delete one email account off your phone that's just spam and bullshit. Get it off your phone. And if somebody needs to get you bad enough, they already have your number or they can get it. And that's just how I feel about it. I've had the same phone number since I was a freshman in college. And to this day, it's real simple, people. It's not hard. Just, hey, I blocked your number, whatever. And get away from the bullshit. It's really an easy thing to do. And get outside. That's one of the things I love about, following you and watching some of your stuff. Sometimes you'll put little sneak peeks in your stories of you just kind of getting outside, just enjoy life. Like you said, life is short. It's a commodity. Time is a commodity you cannot buy back. And you can't get it back. So enjoy the time you have. Sometimes just putting that phone in your pocket. I keep my phone on silent. And people always get a kick out of that. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, look, I'm always going to have text messages. I got 700 unread text messages. I'm like, I assume that they're going to be in there. I always am going to have emails. So why do I need it on? If I look at it and I have a missed call, I keep it, Rob, it stays off. It does not make a noise. There's no noise that's made. When the phone rings, it's silent. So I live that.
That's the only problem is when you misplay. The only problem is when you put it somewhere and you're like, where the hell did I put it? I can't call it.
You have to have the track. You have to have the tracking on. That's the only thing. I have had that happen to me a couple times, but between having the charger and everything else, I find it because it's big and bulky, and I purposely do it that way so I don't like to carry it around too much in my pocket. It's not something I like to have on me. I'll throw it in a backpack. And for the most part, one of the reasons I mentioned this, one of the reasons I started the podcast, that's the question I get the most, was because I wanted to have conversations with people where the phone was put away and just get back to having a good conversation. I used to talk to all these really cool people, you included. And somebody said to me one day, they're like, you really should record these conversations are amazing. I'm like, well, that's called surveillance. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But I'm like, They said you should do a show. And in 2 years, I did 350 episodes, which was a lot of fun. And I just had all these really cool friends. And now everybody's like, how do you know all these people? I'm like, I don't know. I just do. It's not like a crazy thing to me. I just kind of was like, let me start having the conversations on air with these people. And that's kind of how it all started, and it's a lot of fun. It gets me to put the phone away. And when I leave, I genuinely feel like when I hang up with you, I genuinely feel like I had a great chat with Rob. It was good catching up with him and it was a lot of fun. It's genuinely how I walk away, and that's something that's lost. You feel bad for, like you said, youngsters today, kids. They don't get to do that. Like they don't understand the art of a conversation, and that Rob, that's one thing that I think everybody should have a podcast. I believe that. Like, I think it's just a good time to have a conversation with people and, like you said, bullshit and maybe have a beer or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's a good way to just kind of have a normal human chat with somebody and catch up and kind of readjust.
No, I agree, 100%.
Listen, man, I love having you on. It's always great to talk a little football, chop it up, and just catch up on what you have going on, you know, and get kind of that NFL minute. It's a lot of fun, and I know how busy you are with 100 things going on, kids running around swinging from the chandeliers. I get it. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate everything you have going on. Send me the link for what you got going on up in New Hampshire, and let's get that pushed out there. I'll put it up in the bio. To anybody that doesn't get a chance to follow Rob, everywhere they can find you, and he's got a great page. It's a lot of fun. He's retired but graduated.
Yep. So I'm on Instagram, Ninko50. That's my Instagram account. I don't do Twitter. I really don't give a shit about Twitter. I have a Twitter, but I don't look at it. I don't have a Facebook, so I don't have that either. But I just have Ninko50, and then it's the Dan and Ninko Show on Instagram as well. There's just some local stuff there that I've been posting there with Dan O'Brien, and that's pretty much it, man. I'm a low key guy. I don't need to be, all over the place. So for myself and my family, that's after graduation, right? Just take care of the kids. Enjoy the life, and still work. You got to work, right? Like you said, everyone wants to work. So just got to continue to have a hunger to try and progress and do some cool stuff. So that's it, man. That's it. I appreciate you having me on. Next time, hopefully, I can have a better connection. I don't know why it's a little choppy,
but it's been pretty good. It's okay.
I appreciate it.
No, listen, and if you love cars, he gives you some sneak peeks into some fucking sick cars. He's got a nice little collection himself, but he gives you some sneak peeks into cars, which are pretty fun. I think he's teasing too much. He needs to show more. He's got a great
My wife says I'm bragging, but I'm not.
I like
to show what I got,
Yeah. I don't listen. Bragging is taking pictures and pimping someone else's hotness. We both know that. If you own it and it's cool to you, it's cool. I got some fucking badass guns nobody has. I got a wall behind, I got some stuff that I love. I got night vision. All have that stuff, right? I think we all have some cool. Yep. I was screwing around with a thermal the other day for like 2 hours trying to, So I think we all have some fun stuff.
Cool. Now that's cool. I'd rather mess around with thermal than look at my phone. That's 100%.
I gotta thank them. AGM technology. This stuff is amazing. And some night vision that'll knock your socks off. But you can talk about that all day.
I have to check it. I have to check it out.
You gotta promise me when you come to Vegas, you're gonna come by the studio.
I want to go to SHOT Show eventually. One of these years, I want to go to SHOT Show. I'm pretty good friends with Mark Smith, the CEO of Smith & Wesson. So he's there every year. They always have a big, thing there. So
I thought Smith & Wesson.
I definitely want out.
I thought they would have made a bigger play for Remington when it came up for grabs, but I was mistaken. I thought they would have made a bigger play, but
yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, look, they're a gun company in Massachusetts, so that's a tough combo.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you got to go over the border like Sig, but yeah. I mean, I super love my Massachusetts roots. I'm Boston through and through. I miss it back home at times, but when the allure of the great outdoors comes calling, it's not, you got to make your move, and it's not the ideal place to live, like you said. Doing business there is, but that's another story.
I'm here to work. If I wasn't working, I'd probably be somewhere else.
I see you going to New Hampshire at some point. I see you liking that. It's just
the kids with school. It's the kids in school and stuff. Like Berlin, New Hampshire is like the most northern city. There's only 10,000 people there. You got to have a little bit more for the kids as far as education goes.
The thing with Massachusetts is the school system, and you hope that they go to college there because some of the best schools are there because there's great opportunity to be educated there. And
schools and medical. I mean, they have great medical. Great hospitals, great schools. We're not getting political here, but
no, I see you going over the border though for the outdoors piece more than anything. I don't see you going south. I think I could see you in like not necessarily maybe a Laconia, but maybe like right over the border. I could see you having like a hut there or something. Doing the outdoors.
I like Texas too, man. My wife's from Louisiana. I like Louisiana. I had a house in Louisiana, but it's the humidity down there makes me sweat my bag off.
The problem with Texas I have is the traffic in that Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's brutal getting around. I've spent a lot of time there. As you know, I have a lot of friends there. Rob, driving, you go to dinner, they're like an hour is no big deal to be in the car. I'm like, are you crazy? Where we're from, that ain't flying.
That's ridiculous.
You know, I'm like, no way.
Well, that's like Nashville. Like Nashville, I was talking to somebody that moved to Franklin, Tennessee. And I guess like the infrastructure wasn't ready for the influx of people over the last 10 years. So they only have a certain amount of roads and highways for a small population that's boomed. So they don't have the space for all the people.
After I was in Montana, I went to Miami and I was there in an Airbnb chilling out, catching my breath. And I was like, I don't know if I could live here because the traffic there is ridiculous. But I was down there with some friends and we get a firearms lubricant, which we love. Great guys. And then, I got the call to come here to import-export AK-47s. And I said, Vegas, huh? And the first thing my buddy said, because he knows me so well, he goes, the food's good there. You'll be fine. That was the first thing he said. In the real estate and everything's good. And it's been a lot of fun being in Vegas. And I never thought it would grow on me, but it has. And I had some friends out here, and some people from back home. So that was always cool. But having the opportunity, the food is a big component. The food has to be good or we're in trouble. We're big guys. We got to eat.
Yeah.
The food has to be good. So I can see New Orleans, but the problem with New Orleans and Nashville to me is they're one street.
It's small. It's small. Look, Vegas is great too. Every time I go to Vegas, I always leave and I'm happy that I went. So it's a great spot too. There's a lot of great places in our country. You got a beautiful country. You got to make sure we keep it that way.
100%. Listen, I don't want to keep you any longer. I appreciate you coming on. We'll put the links down below. Go check out his Instagram. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, maybe I can coerce him into posting more cars. But I love having you, brother, and I appreciate you taking the time.
All right, John. Thanks, man.
All right.